very excited to start our first panel. So please help me welcome to the stage our amazing moderator, my South Texas board member and public transit innovator, Rachel Benavides, Vice President of Strategy and Service Delivery of VIA Metropolitan Transit. Rachel is a published author who was recently named a 2025 Women's Leadership Award honoree by the San Antonio Business Journal, and is one of 10 San Antonians chosen to represent our city this year at Harvard's Business School's Young American Leadership Program. She is also president of the Public Relations Society of America in San Antonio and currently serves on the boards of Young Women's Leadership Academy and, of course, SOTEX. Please help me welcoming Rachel Benavides. Thank you. Thank you, Rebecca. Good morning, everybody. One more hand for Rebecca, our president and CEO of the South Texas. It's my honor to serve as moderator for this panel to discuss how innovation is recasting the future of the South Texas economy. A future that's quickly taking shape, thanks in part to the work and the vision of the people in this room. Today, we'll hear from leaders in their fields who are not just observing this change, they're driving it. Please help me welcome our distinguished panelists, and as I call your name, if you make your way up to those stairs so that we don't knock each other over on these stairs. Nathan Burkhart is the Vice President of Entrepreneurship at the Brownsville Community Improvement Corporation, or BCIC. His experience spans business development, ecosystem building, corporate branding, and project management across financial services, consulting, and marketing industries. Nathan's impact has earned him impressive accolades as one of the top under 40 economic developers by Development Counselors International and Jorgensen-based, the only Texan to earn the distinction this year. For sure. Nathan is leading Brownsville's innovation economy from startups to SpaceX. He's helping redefine what's possible in the Rio Grande Valley. John Dickson is CEO of Bytewhispher Security, a company focused on addressing cybersecurity risks associated with AI-generated software. John is a U.S. Air Force veteran and internationally recognized cybersecurity consultant. He's an angel investor and civic leader with over 25 years of experience advising Fortune 500 public and military clients. Please help me welcome John Dickson. Also with us today is Bill Rafferty, Regional Director at TMAC Southwest Research Institute. Bill has extensive experience in manufacturing process improvement and technology acceleration, and plays a key role in enhancing the competitiveness of Texas industries. And finally, we have William Steele, CEO of SupplyPay, a fintech innovator revolutionizing cross-border trade finance. William is a successful entrepreneur who has leveraged South Texas's unique economic landscape to build one of the fastest growing startups in the Rio Grande Valley. SupplyPay is democratizing trade finance, providing small and medium-sized enterprises with access to capital and streamlining international transactions. Thanks to all of our panelists for joining us today. Hey, just get organized here 1 second. So I was born and raised in Brownsville. Where are my Valley peeps in the room? And the Rio Grande Valley wasn't always synonymous with innovation and growth or investment. I remember it once being described as a place where opportunity met hardship. That's not the case anymore. I would like to ask our panelists an opening question. What has changed in the Rio Grande Valley to make South Texas, to make it uniquely positioned for success in these emerging sectors? And I'll start with Nathan.
Good morning, everybody. Nathan Burkhart. I think what's really changed is regionalism. Regionalism has become our strength in the Rio Grande Valley over the last 8 years. We have a regional Tier 2 research university with UTRGV. We have a kind of a regional approach to economic development and a regional approach to transit too. We now have the regional NPO that kind of overtook El Paso as the 5th largest after the Texas Triangle Metros. So kind of all of us coming together, sharing those resources instead of kind of that crabs in a bucket mentality that really held the valley back for so long, especially in the 80s. I'm a product of Brownsville. The number one thing to do for my generation was leave because there wasn't a whole lot of opportunity. But with that regionalism coming together, there's been a lot more opportunity to start something. One of our founders actually out of our incubators here as well. We can talk a little bit more on that, but I would argue regionalism is what's brought us together.
I think a lot of us in the SoTech's universe here would agree regionalism is a big change and something that's really driving a lot of the innovation and investment. John, what are your thoughts?
I'm going to take an opposite view. Sorry, is this on?
It should be. If not, Nathan can lend you
There
this.
you go.
There we go.
There you go.
I'm going to take an opposite view. I'm sorry. I'm an entrepreneur and ran a company that was based in San Antonio and Austin. But based in San Antonio, it had an Austin office. We were about 140 folks. And we had an on-prem hiring strategy for about 10 years. And then the pandemic happened. And from about March of 2020 onward, we could not care less where you lived. So we were hiring people wherever.
Right.
And so in a weird way, we're not tied to hiring people here. And that's counterintuitive, which means I can hire people from the Valley or here or other places. And that actually spurred our growth. So we were based here, we had all of our leadership here, we improved the Valley here, but we cherry-picked folks from all over the place. The company that I'm starting now is a remote-first company, which means that I don't really, it doesn't matter where you're at, because what I'm looking for are security people, cybersecurity people who understand AI. I don't care where they're at. So I have my other founders in Denver, one of my lead guys is in Chicago. I have a person in Vietnam and a person in London. I have 4 in San Antonio. So it's interesting in a weird way. That's how entrepreneurs think. It works for better or worse to some degree. If you're from here, now I have to fly all over the place, but that's a counter view to what, and I'm by the way, past chamber chairman for the North Chamber, was on the Hispanic Chamber Board and the Greater Chamber Board, Greater SATX Board. So I'm a huge economic development, local economic development person. When you say CEO type, you have a certain view that's slightly different. So what is worth?
Nathan, you have 1 minute to rebut. No, I'm just kidding. We could argue that maybe it could be both, depending on how broad your view of the emerging industry landscape is. Bill, your thoughts?
Bill Rafferty with Southwest Research Institute, as you introduced, but there I lead a program called the Texas Manufacturing Assistance Center. In fact, I have a colleague from the Valley, David Ortiz, who leads our South Texas Center. But, where I come from, and these may be more personal views, but I think there's huge opportunity in manufacturing in both in the Valley, in our relationship with Mexico, as well as right here in San Antonio. And as already acknowledged, David Marquez led a study, our first study a little over 10 years ago, about all the companies that are attracted here. And I think we should do more to attract industry. Getting into manufacturing, it's a low barrier, right? You can start without experience if you want to work, and you can retire as the president of that facility. It pays great, et cetera. So, but we'll probably talk more. But anyway, that's my position, and I'm going to pass the mic.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Billy?
There's a lot of great things said there. First, I want to say for John, it's very spot on. It doesn't matter where the talent is. But when you're building a company, you need every ounce of resource, and every person you hire sequentially, especially in the first 10, 20, 30 hires, needs to be substantially better than your previous hire. You have to constantly upskill. It's not easy, especially when you're in a really competitive space like building and technology. But I have a personal, one of the things that I like to do is ask. Almost all my engineers are out of country, even. Some of my engineering talent is in Mexico, some in Brazil. But one of the biggest questions that I ask them when I'm onboarding and what will take them to kind of later rounds is are they willing and able in the next 2 years as we hit subsequent company milestones to relocate? One, because personally I just like the in-person camaraderie that you get. There's some real both of them have their benefits and their drawbacks. Some people are just not willing to do that anymore in the world that we live in. But if you can get people at that kind of sweet spot where they're willing to transition, now we're bringing, really highly educated, high income earners to the region. Like, so where I live, it's in Westago, and I work a lot out of the E-Bridge, I go to McAllen, like all over the valley. I kind of look at it as like one place, the way that I like travel so often inside of it. But speaking on like talent and trends there as a founder. But from what has changed, in my opinion, of the valley is quite have an interesting take, because I actually showed up at the E-Bridge building in Brownsville. For those who don't know, like Brownsville has this really incredible resource that they invested and placed a pretty big bet on in downtown Brownsville, which is called the E-Bridge Center. And it's basically like a center for innovation and incubation and a gathering place for people with crazy ideas in the region.
And who leads the E-Bridge?
Say again?
Who leads the E-Bridge?
That's BZNC, yeah, with Nathan, and it's like the Brownsville Community Improvement Corporation, UTRGV, like there's so many incredible resources there. And like that has had such a major impact on the outcomes that we've had as a startup. So like, for those who don't know, we really focus on building the tools and software and financing for exporters and importers. Specifically, we started with a focus on fresh produce trade between Mexico and the United States. And as we all know, like the Rio Grande Valley is a huge import-export region for fresh produce. It's actually like the number one port of entry for fresh produce in the United States is in the McAllen area. So we wouldn't have even started the company if we didn't know that these problem sets existed. So I think there's actually a really interesting opportunity that we have in border regions, right? In places like Brownsville, McAllen, Laredo, Eagle Pass, El Paso. And I go to a lot of these towns often and meet with different importers, exporters, and business leaders. We have interesting problems that not everyone has. Like, we're a terrestrial border between Mexico and the United States, and you can find that those problems, if you can solve them well, there's a lot of other countries that have terrestrial borders next to each other, and it's problem sets that scale, and you can really build like a venture-backed technology company to solve those problems, and you can start here in this region. And it's, I think, like kind of sitting in plain sight for certain people, and maybe they're used to solving them at the local level. But if you abstract that, you can really build something incredible, and I think like have like a vision and a goal that could be really interesting coming out of the region. So that's some of the stuff I've seen that's changed.
Thank you. Go ahead, Nathan.
I'd also like to kind of point out is part of the reason why I would argue regionalism is our strength in the valleys. Rio Grande Valley's been a resource-strapped community for so long. So kind of pulling together all of our resources to try to finally carve out our own place is really what's been able to progress our region for the last 10 years. The incubator that William's talking about only was created by sales tax dollars within Brownsville with our EDC organization and our partnership with UTRGV. We don't have the foundational wealth to create a deepdom, or velocity. We had to create that out of the public sector on our own. So kind of taking those private sector concepts, but developing them in a way that we can build them in Brownsville and the Rio Grande Valley is really what's helped us out.
And I think Judge Sakai mentioned the need and the strength of public-private partnerships in developing these innovations and using innovation for this problem-solving approach. Let's talk a little bit about what local businesses and entrepreneurs can do to capitalize on the growth of these sectors. So we're in San Antonio today, right? And San Antonio is a model for a lot of the things that we're talking about, but the Rio Grande Valley is redefining how they approach. So what can businesses and entrepreneurs do to capitalize on this growth that's happening now? It's not potential, it's happening right now.
I'll take a first shot at it. I mean, the one thing we do is we talk to UTSA a lot, not at the expense of others. It's just we're a small company to try weigh in on the new School of Data Science and provide feedback there and input. Already talking to folks about hiring interns and college hires. One of the problems that we have is everybody that we know in industry from our denim group time to afford, they're too expensive now. So we've kind of outgrown the people that we know is in our cohort. So we're looking for folks that are maybe junior or college hires,
That is interesting because a lot of companies are not doing that right now. They're doing the opposite, where they're slowing down the college hires and they're trying to throw AI at everybody that's in the junior cohort right now. So messaging to the local hiring groups, higher ed, that's probably the biggest one. Just being engaged to try to find where the talent is. The other thing we're looking at doing right now, we're talking, is Monterey Tech. Monterey to San Antonio is closer, I think, than
You're getting a big nod from William.
San Antonio to Dallas. I think
Yeah.
they're closer.
It is.
So they have a great tech program there. So like figuring out how to do a nearshore model between San Antonio and Monterey is quite interesting to us. So, yeah.
I'll do it and say my best interns are from Tech de Monterrey. And they are like people I cannot wait till they graduate so I can hire them full time and bring them as same illustrations.
And Denver, we had 3 guys from Mexico that are here now, and I want to send them back to set up that center. But they don't want to go back. Unfortunately, I like to go back. But that'd be kind of cool.
And I'll just build on the internship approach. It's fantastic. We really want to grow our talent that's here as much as we can. So if you have interns that are local, that has family that are local, let them go further, go get a degree somewhere else, and then come back. Because ultimately, we lose more folks at Southwest Research at the 5-year mark because people go back to where their families are and grandparents, those things. So we really need to nurture through internship. And there's some fantastic programs here locally.
From a labor resource perspective, would you call that investing at the ground level?
I would, absolutely. I think, in fact, I'm involved in teacher externships. And that's an opportunity to showcase industries locally and then to the influencers of the youth that ultimately direct them into careers and local opportunities and ultimately position them for success and growth and again, hopefully come back.
So that's definitely something that's needed, investing in the workforce as it's coming up, making sure that we're focusing on the schools and the sectors that are going to supply the innovation that's driving South Texas. Let me ask this. What infrastructure investments do you think are needed to support growing industries in South Texas?
We take an approach of investing in our own. We've got specific accelerator programs or incubation programs for our entrepreneurship end, but also we have a really wide array of tier 3, tier 2, and now a few tier 1 suppliers for businesses and industry at the port, over at Starbase and SpaceX. I definitely want to give a shout out to TMAC, Dave Ortiz, I just saw him there in the back. TMAC has been an exceptional resource for everyone in the Rio Grande Valley. So many of our food entrepreneurs and even kind of nonprofits. I chair an affordable housing organization down in the city of Brownsville, and we've used TMAC to reduce the time from building a prefabricated home from 3 months down to almost like 3 weeks because of the assistance with TMAC. So kind of plugging yourself in with those specific resources is to ever.
Any other thoughts on infrastructure?
We've got leaders here. Again, this is my personal opinion, but we want to attract manufacturers. We want to attract factories. Again, because we want good paying jobs for folks that are here. If you think of the south side, I'll work on that. West side, Southwest on the west side or the east side. We really talking specifically about manufacturing in San Antonio. If we could build factories closer to our population, well, then that would raise all boats. Could be generational change because manufacturers, the average total compensation for a manufacturing employee is $100,000. Think about that. Almost double a service sector or a hospitality sector. And you can start without any prior education. And you can learn it online or you can learn on the job. So there's just huge opportunity that we should leverage what we've already had success in, which is one of the world's best manufacturers, Toyota, Caterpillar. Yes, thank you, Toyota. Like to recognize you guys. But then we have other ones that are coming to the area. Not quite South Texas, but you have Tesla. Tesla hired 10,000 employees because I think it was about being green, but it's still a manufacturing company. And the reality is that it's just great careers and opportunities for advancement. So we need to leverage that more and build on that for the area. And so my investment suggestion is that leadership should have shovel-ready sites that provide utilities and water so that the competition is easier so we can win. So thank you, leadership. Thought I'd make that plug for that.
Speaking of Tesla, John, go ahead.
No, I was just going to double down on that. I think that's a fantastic point for manufacturing, which is not my role, but I totally agree. Having paths that are ready to go is always a hindrance. On the cybersecurity and data science side, the universities, the NSA accredited universities are here, fantastic. That helps a lot. I point out Cyber Patriot, the high school level competition that a guy named Joe Sanchez and other folks have put together. Is phenomenal. Like for me, it's trying to get the kids that are like 15 to 16 that are interested in this. The STEM folks, the folks are, if they are curious and are interested at 16, it's just a matter of time. The problem that we have is data scientists are not 100,000, they're 500,000. Data scientists that know AI are 500,000 for individual performers. Let me say that again, like we can't even touch them. They don't live here, they live in Austin, they live in San Jose, they live in New York, they don't live here, anywhere here for the most part. So the challenge that we are trying to do is figure out how can we get UTSA, School of Data Science, to put out students that are pretty darn good that aren't $500,000 as W-2 employees. We can't afford that cost structure. So that's kind of what we're thinking is hopefully we can get talent that's good enough that can learn pretty quickly that because we just can't compete with Meta, Anthropic, OpenAI, and others on that type of talent.
Before we move on from this topic, John actually brought up something interesting, and Cyber Command. There was a big announcement for Cyber Command here in San Antonio. How is that going to feed into the change in the landscape for San Antonio going south?
Well, I think it's pretty cool, and it's a recognition at the state level that there's this critical mass here in San Antonio. I've been banging that drum for 20 years, for those that know me. I'm an ex-Air Force intelligence officer and cyber guy from Skippy Hill. I think it's great. I look forward to kind of the specifics and hows and wherefores of how that happens. That's being diplomatic. But it's good that we got the money. It's good that it's here. I will just tell you this, as a person that's been in that world for 30 years, it's only getting trickier. And after Dinner Group got acquired, there were clear expectations for my wife for me to retire. But I didn't retire.
How's that working out? Yeah.
It's well, we're okay. But the reason I didn't retire was number one, AI could go either way. I truly believe that safe and secure deployment of AI is not a fait accompli. And secondly, the nation-state threat against our region. And for those that don't know, Military City, USA, yeah, we're on that list over there. So for also those that don't know, last March, year ago March, there was probing in Muleshoe, Texas, which is the opposite of South Texas. I think it's in the Panhandle, in all these states. So there's active efforts to disrupt and do research on our grid and the water systems in the U.S. by probably the Chinese. So that's the other reason I didn't retire, because that's going to happen, we think. And we are best positioned as a region to be aware of that and to defend against it.
Well, thank you, John, for staying with us. We feel safer having you here at that. We appreciate the perspective, is that as much as we're growing and changing, the job's never done, right? And so every time there's a new elevated level, let's say for AI and cybersecurity in your particular field, we need experts like you to make sure we're moving forward correctly. William, you've been holding the mic. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I want to say that one area of infrastructure is less physical and more from an investment perspective. There is, as far as I know, no venture fund in the South Texas area where I live. Like from McAllen to Brownsville, there exists no real institutional investors. I think that that's a really big missed opportunity, just for a lot of reasons. I think there's some really cool ideas. I'll give a shout out to a city who has done an excellent job and continues to do an excellent job at that, and that's El Paso. Alga's Capital is one of our investors, and they specifically have like really good understanding of what we were doing because they're in a border region, right? They're between El Paso and Juarez. They understand trade. They understand the scope of the market. When I was out racing our first round, it was, people just didn't see McAllen. They were like, McAllen, what is that? Most people, I would ask them like, oh, have you guys ever heard of McAllen, to start the conversation off with some VCs? Most of them had no clue. And then I told them like, oh, just in Celery last year, they crossed $200 million worth of celery. And then their eyes light up. They're like, oh, there's like a market there. There's something there that can, scale and grow. But I think that it would be really interesting for anyone in the audience that knows family offices or has a family office, take an opportunity to look at some of the deals from partners that are in border regions like Brownsville, like McAllen, that are trying to raise a fund. I know one particular fund manager who had such a long, it's pretty difficult to raise a fund right now, but he had a really difficult time raising a fund for a period of time. Now he's closing and it's really exciting. He's starting the journey of investing. But it took a lot longer than I think it should have, right? He's in another border region in Texas, and I think there's a ton of opportunity there. So keep your eyes peeled for that. If you see anyone, promote them, get them to the right people.
Thank you for that.
Hey, at a minimum, we need to connect you with the San Antonio people. Yeah.
There you
Seriously,
go.
there are
Trading
VCs.
vibes here on stage.
So don't feel badly because that's the way Austin views us.
Yeah.
So don't feel badly.
Yeah.
Like, I've had this multiple times in my career. What are you doing in San Antonio?
Yeah.
And then I refer to the Cyber Command and all these other things.
Right.
And, but we get that too in a different way. From Austin and San Francisco, San Jose, New York, and other places. So it is true. But from a region, we should connect because there are venture capitalists in San Antonio. There are more than family funds. There's angel investors. There's a formalized angel group. Now, is it smaller than Austin? You better believe it. But it's getting there. So if nothing else, we'll connect those dots.
Well, thank you all for that call to action. We've got about 10 minutes left. That's one or two more questions. And Nathan, I wanted to talk and introduce the topic. I was saying, speaking of Tesla, Brownsville and Boca Chica Beach has a very interesting resident. And the growth from that change in population there has been SpaceX and the absolute growth of aerospace in that industry in Brownsville and the Valley. Tell us a little bit about how that's changing, what kind of wraparound services infrastructure is building up for the Rio Grande Valley and all the way up to San Antonio and even further north throughout the world with aerospace now in Texas.
Yeah, just, I think it was about 2 weeks ago, our sister organization, Greater Brownsville Incentives Corporation, just opened up a tech district. It's a industrial park on the north end of Brownsville.
The first tech district in the valley, is that right?
In the valley, and it's one of the first businesses that are moving in there as a tier 1 supplier specifically for SpaceX. So kind of creating that pipeline is already kind of being envisioned. On the entrepreneur side, we have quite a few individuals that are utilizing NASA tech transfer licenses to create their own prototypes and companies here in the Rio Grande Valley and Brownsville as well. And utilizing, again, our accelerator programs and the incubator programming that we have. We're actually about to launch our first space accelerator program in 2 weeks ago with the Space Foundation in Colorado. So we're carving out that niche for ourselves. But so much of the Rio Grande Valley is still kind of based in either logistics companies. There's a few tech companies like William, and there's also food entrepreneurs. And I think some restaurants and establishments have been able to kind of push the boundary a little bit more, particularly because millennials are going to be back and trying different things. But there's also now a market with SpaceX and LNG and individuals coming in with more expendable income. They kind of want those menu items.
We have Michelin Star and James Beard.
There's 3 recognized James Beard restaurants in Brownsville, and the best chef in Texas is over in Mission near McAllen. So the Valley's cuisine is also really changing too, which is really exciting. And also, just kind of wrap up from the last question, we also have now a real legitimate angel investment group. We actually opened up the first expansion chapter of Alamo Angels here in San Antonio down in the Rio Grande Valley, which we're really excited about. And from that group, there's already one talk about a potential VC fund opening up there hopefully. So yeah, just a lot of excitement built around, if SpaceX can go out to the middle of the desert and build something in the valley, then it can really come into the valley and build something.
Fantastic. And with our last few minutes, and we can talk all day on some of these exciting topics, but I'd really like to ask each of you to tell me in a few words what your vision of South Texas is looking out the next 5 years. John, we can start with you.
And I'm the only John on the panel, so I didn't get any time to think about that one. I would just say a thriving cybersecurity and tech community, not only the institutions, the higher ed, the contractors, the military missions, but I mean, for me, the private companies, the product and platform companies that are doing some interesting things. That's the area that we still need to improve on. So, and I measure that in headcount, revenue, intellectual property, market share, stuff like that. That's an area that I would hope we do better in the next 10 years.
We're not going to let you retire your real estate. Go ahead, William or Bill.
I'll jump in there and I'll stay on my manufacturing bent. And so when you think of a vision, that's, forward-looking, what do you want it to be? And so I would say South Texas would be a thriving industrial manufacturing premier location in the United States in which to build a big plant. And that would be fortified by our young, energetic workforce that go into manufacturing, which is not a limiting thing, turn into engineers. Half the commercial R&D in this country is done at commercial and manufacturing organizations. And so there's tremendous spin-off opportunities. So that would be my vision, that we would embrace manufacturing. When given a choice, young people in high school out of 6 professions, it could be healthcare, it could be service, where do you think manufacturing ends up? It's last place. Our biggest challenge is the stigma of that it's not a good profession, but they're great, challenging, team-based, problem-solving jobs in manufacturing. So I'll leave it at that. That's my vision. Thank you.
Can we expand that a little bit to distribution and give a shout out to Mayor Allen from Brownsville who just recently announced the Amazon distribution center down there in the valley, which I think is going to be a major big changer.
Absolutely, because if you have a manufacturing plant, then you have to get the raw materials there. And then you have to distribute the finished goods. So one manufacturing job creates 2 to 3 other jobs and support services. So that's the focal point, and the distribution and the east-west, north-south, great opportunity.
Fantastic. William?
I think I'm really excited about the next 5 years for the Valley in a sense that is the economic impact of a really good incubation and a really good technology ecosystem really can't be understated. I was actually just doing some deep research with an LLM, and last night until 2 a.m. this morning, trying to take case studies of where did this go right? And there's several that you find where a public-private partnership really led to thousands of really high-paying jobs and hundreds of millions of dollars in venture investment into these ideas and concepts. And I think we have some really good momentum in the Valley, and I think each of the cities are coming together to build a collective ecosystem. I really liked RGB Startup Week. That was a really great event that highlighted through several different cities what's going on. And I personally get to see a lot of the young entrepreneurs that are going through the startup programs that I went through in the area. And as long as several of the front runners of the pack keep blazing the trail, people will be able to come back and invest. There will be other VCs, other angels that have seen success in their portfolio from these companies. They'll want to double down into the area. So I think it's a really, really exciting time, and there's a lot of talent recycling that will happen between some larger companies like SpaceX. People will get burnt out. They'll be I want to do something exciting for myself. I've learned all these really interesting skills, and then I'm going to have to go somewhere else to do that. Right? They're going to be in a place that has the infrastructure, that has other case studies of success, and there's also resources available from both the cities and from private investment for them to grow and do that there. So I'm really excited about the next 5 years.
Where to? Nathan, with the closing thought, can you tell us what your vision for South Texas the next 5 years? And remember, South Texas is defined by the diamond that Judge Sakai talked to us about. But the way that he defined it is really like a lightning bolt, right? San Antonio, Corpus, Laredo, and the Valley. So there's a lot of energy happening. Tell us what your vision is for that region.
I expand that region. Kind of that diamond turns into a triangle again when you include Monterrey. There's a joke that, Monterrey is the most southern city in Texas, and Dallas is the most northern city in Mexico. So kind of continuing to bridge upon that. I feel like the South Texas Triangle is going to be that metro, the way that we talk about the current Texas Triangle as well. Everything else that my colleagues said on here is true to that effect, as well as, at least for Brownsville and the Rio Grande Valley, I do see kind of a more tech-fueled driven exchange of ideas and businesses being formed. I've been fortunate enough to go over to Starbase to see the operations, and when you walk in there, it's puro norteño music. It's our people really building the rocket, which is very exciting. And from that, you're getting spin-offs of different training companies, individuals that kind of, like William said, did get burnt out and are now kind of visiting our incubator because they want to complete a company in a completely different field, or they're excited to kind of embark on something on their own. So we're going to see a lot more of that. It's going to be a lot more exciting. I'm just happy that the Valley finally has come together to carve out our own piece into the table.
I'm inspired. How about y'all? Thank you for the panelists for the discussion, for the calls to action, for all of you out there who are looking not just to listen, but to drive the change. We're excited to have you here.